Welcome back to Season 2 of That's So Second Millennium, the Catholic Science podcast, where we look forward to the new synthesis in the new millennium between faith, philosophy, and science. Welcome back to episode 68 of That's So Second Millennium. Today we start the first of our two episodes with Father Lawrence Machia of the Benedictine Order and Daniel vanden, who are both at St. Vincent College and archabbey in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. So we spend this episode discussing their journeys as scientists of faith. So we talk a lot to Father Lawrence about his time going from astronomy to theology in his college days, and then discerning his vocation as a Benedictine monk, and then how he is continuing and is going to go back and get his advanced degrees in physics. And his, just the nuts and bolts of what it's like becoming a Benedictine in this day and age, how that works, how it's still so much the traditional process, and how that ties into his understanding of science in the world, which we'll talk more about next week as well. And then we talk to Professor vanden. He's a Cradle Catholic who is a scientist, who's a physicist who's worked on a lot of sky surveys. And has done some really interesting things in astronomy. Actually, looking him up on the St. Vincent website and looking through his research specialties would be just an interesting thing to do in itself. I'd strongly recommend it. So, without further ado, we'll start the interview, and again, we'll finish it next week. Next week will be a pretty short episode, but this week is an ordinary half-hour episode. So enjoy. Welcome back to That's So Second Millennium, the Catholic Science Podcast. I'm here with my co-host Bill Schmidt, and we're very pleased to have Father Lawrence Machia and Dr. Daniel vanden from St. Vincent College in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which, of course, everyone who drinks Rolling Rock, and many of us who haven't, will also know where Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and its significance. But we're going to talk to them a little bit about, they are presenting at the Society of Catholic Scientists Conference, which is going to start later this evening, about Galileo and his perspective on the human mind, but we really want to talk to them about their experience as people of faith. So, Father Lawrence, could you walk us through your sort of life and your vocational path so far in terms of, so you've got an interest in physics and obviously also in Galileo, but you're also an ordained Benedictine monk. So how has that all come together in your life so far?
Right. So I guess you could say that my first love was science. Mm-hmm. From the time I was a kid, I've always, I guess you could call it a space cadet or something like that. And when I originally started doing an undergraduate degree back in 2004, mm-hmm. I started out intending to major in astronomy and astrophysics. And I was at a small little school near Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. It's Eastern University. Okay. And I guess, I was 18 at the time, and I was young and didn't quite know what I wanted. Yeah. So I ended up changing my major from astronomy and astrophysics to theology, because I took a few theology core courses that were required. And I didn't even know that it was possible to study religion on that level. Right. Like my experience of religion was what I had learned in my catechesis. Sure. Sure. I was kind of a late start to coming to my faith. I only started doing religious instruction when I was 14. Okay. So okay. I just did like the crash course, 2 years for my first communion, 2 years for my confirmation. Yeah. And so that was my faith formation. That was it. Just those 4 years. Yeah. Before
the very best that people could offer you in the 1990s.
Yeah. We did slightly better than perhaps some other places. I think I had a lot of really good mentors and examples in my life, even some real saints, to be honest. Some really hurts. Some really beautiful men and women who mentored me, as a high school student, and really set me up to be very serious about pursuing my faith as a young man in college. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and I'm a Catholic, so I never was anything else. I'm just sort of a late start Catholic. Mm-hmm. And I went to a Protestant school. Eastern it's not a Catholic university. And I studied theology there. Okay. And I like to say I learned more about my Catholic faith in my first semester at Eastern than I did in my 4 years. And it's because people were asking me questions.
Well, there's that.
And I didn't even know what questions. Yeah. So all of a sudden I had to really dig into what does it mean to be Catholic and not something else. Right. So that was really the formation that I had in that 4 years. even though I had stepped away from the academic pursuit of science for the time. I did continue to minor in astronomy, work in a planetarium.
Was that a distinct minor from physics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. It was. To do astrophysics, actually, part of the program would have been at Villanova. And I think that was part of it. Like, I realized very quickly I kind of wanted to be involved with campus life and didn't want to be going to another campus, spending most of my time. And there's a number of things I attributed to just I was young and didn't really know what I wanted yet. Yeah. So I really just dug into theology, into learning about my faith, both in an academic way, but also just in a personal way through the relationships, friendships that I had. A lot of the most difficult conversations that I had were not in the classroom. Right. They were in the dorm room. Right. 2:30 in the morning after a Sheets run or something like that. Yeah. Sheets run. Fantastic. Or Wawa or whatever it is where you're from, I think it was Wawa out there. Yeah. Wow. There you go. So graduated with my degree in theology in 2008. In the middle of an economic crash with a liberal arts degree. So, and I worked the worthy job of retail, for 3 years. Yeah. And, I mean, it's any work is worthy work, but I mean, retail, it's hard. It's not very fun. The hours aren't good. So I basically went from undergraduate school to just the school of life. Yeah. And, useful experience. Yeah. 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 So during that time was just another period of formation where I was open to consecrated life, but I had essentially told God, well, if this is something you want me to do, please make it explicit. Yes. Because otherwise I'm not going to get like a subtle signal. Like, you want me to do it? Tell me and I'll do it. Yeah. Otherwise, I think I want to be a high school science teacher. Okay. So I was pursuing a path related to that and looking at going back to school and such. And then I was seeing a priest for spiritual direction. And he suggested I make a visit to St. Vincent Archabbey in Latrobe, which is, I was living in Lancaster County at the time, Pennsylvania. Yeah. So it was a few hours away. I'd never heard of Latrobe. Yeah. Did not drink Rolling Rock. Right. So had no particular attachment to it. Yeah. So my spiritual director, he's like, we were talking one day, and I think literally the exact words I said that prompted him to suggest I make a visit to St. Vincent. Yeah. I said, oh, I don't know. He was asking me, like, well, what do you want to be in your life? And I said something to the effect of, quote, I want to be a quantum physicist and a theologian and plumb the depths of all knowledge. Some hyperbole like that. I was in the moment. Yeah, that's right. Well, the unrestricted desire to know. Yeah, it's kind of what it was. I was like, anything other than working retail in a cornfield. I love Lancaster County, but after 3 years, it felt like working retail in a cornfield, and I was ready for something else. No
retail can be a noble profession. Cornfields are definitely noble.
Absolutely.
The combination was perhaps not working very well.
For me, it was just, felt like I was really starting to stagnate. Lancaster's a beautiful place for anybody who's listening who's from Lancaster. Yes. It's, I love it, still love it, have friends there, great place. Great place to raise a family. But I needed something different. My spiritual director suggested I make this visit to Latrobe, and my response was, what's Latrobe? Right. And he said, well, there's a monastery there. Then
that works.
I had all, like, I guess, typical stereotypes of what a monk was. What you see in movies. Yeah. People who, never eat, sit around or silent all the time. Right. Just a lot of, prayer, fasting, asceticism, discipline. Right. I was like, wow, well, that seems odd. Right. You would see me, in that position. Yeah. But he was pretty explicit about his suggestion. So I took it, well, maybe this is a sign from God. Yeah. Maybe God is actually, So I followed up on it and I made a visit to St. Vincent in 2010. Okay. And then I went back for a longer visit a few months later. And essentially, it kind of shattered all of my stereotypes. I guess what I found at St. Vincent was a consecrated life that was eminently livable. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. It wasn't some ideal on a hill. It's a challenging life. Yeah. It's a worthy life. Yeah. But I mean, I like to tell people we're ordinary men with an extraordinary call. Yeah. So we eat together, we have fun together, we work, we play together, we live in community together. And the monastery has this wonderful apostolate. We have St. Vincent College, Catholic liberal arts education. We have a seminary. We do a lot of pastoral work, even some missionary work overseas, small amount. but it's there. And we've actually been getting vocations from that as well. So it's just St. Vincent, if anybody's listening who's discerning a vocation, it's like a sandbox. There's room for virtually anything, almost anything there. If like an interest or talent, like it's just, there's so much potential, and it's just a wonderful group of men. So essentially I just fell in love with the place. And for Benedictines, your call is to a specific place, not just to the order in general, because we make a vow of stability. But I also found the spirituality to be really affirming sort of deep ideals that I had in myself. So the discernment eventually, within a few months, became, well, God, if you don't want me to do this, then stop me.
You're going to have to derail me here. Because
And he did not, and that was 8 years ago. So now I'm solemnly professed and a priest of 1 year, and here I sit. So that was like my vocational path. And then I never lost the love of science through all of that either.
So how did that play out while you were in formation for? I despite having grown up in Indiana and having heard about St. Meinrad's all my life, which of course the local one here, what is that process? If you can just give us the thumbnail sketch of what it is to, what happens if you express an interest in becoming a Benedictine? What do you do in what order?
Sure. Yeah. So typically, you come in and you begin with what's called the novitiate. So that's the intense period of formal training. You get the habit. You have the option of taking a new name. So I was Sean before. Now then I became Lawrence, Brother Lawrence, not Father Lawrence. Although you can also do what's called a postulancy. So it's sort of it's a pre-novitiate experience where you live in the monastery. You have the life of the monks. But you don't take the habit. So it's just a little less commitment. You might look at it as sort of an extended live-in, but there's also some formation to it as well. It's not just hang out at the monastery. So I did an extended postulancy just because it made more sense with, me ending the jobs that I was already in. I also did some youth ministry and such. So I brought a natural end to that. Then I entered St. Vincent at the beginning of the school year in 2011, August 2011. And I did a school year's worth of postulancy. And then we accept our novices into the novitiate. Our novitiate begins on July 10th. So July 10th, 2012. It's funny, all the years run together. I came in 11. So it would have been in 12 when I came in into the novitiate. So I did one calendar year in the novitiate. So again, wearing the habit, you're kind of isolated. Like you don't have phone, you don't have the use of the internet. You're even in sense of the monastic community, like the novices live in a separate spot. They have their own little recreation area. I mean, you're integrated with the community, but you don't have the same responsibilities everybody else does. It's designed to be a period of intense focus. You study the rule, you do house chores, you have little outings here and there, and I had a great time. I loved my novitiate. So after a calendar year, then you make your temporary vows. So the tradition is that those are for 3 years. Now, some monasteries you'll make one vow that lasts for 3 years. We renew our vows every year. So that's how we do it at St. Vincent. A lot of other places do that.
Temporary vows.
So when you profess your vows on July 11th, you profess them for 1 year. And then the year before you make your solemn profession, you profess them for 1 year and 1 day. And that 1 day is the 1 day before you make your solemn vows. So during the what's called the juniorate, so that's that time when you're in the temporary vows. In our house, we also send our men to seminary. Whether they intend to be priests or not, it's just the idea is to get everybody kind of educated. I have a good basis there for theology and formation. I felt a call to the priesthood from the beginning, so I was in the ordination track, discerning that simultaneously with my monastic vocation, going to seminary and studying. But I told the archabbey from the beginning that I had an interest in science. and that I had started an undergraduate in physics, and that I was interested in continuing that and in teaching in the college someday, in particular working in the planetarium that we have. And he was supportive of that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because, we have a vow of obedience. So, the vow of obedience, of course, under the best of circumstances, incorporates what the individual monk's gifts and talents are and such. But at the end of the day, it's what does the community need? So the archabbey could have easily said to me,
actually, we need this.
Yeah, we need this. And your training is not in physics, it's in something else. So he could have funneled me in a different direction, but he didn't. He was really supportive of me from the beginning, pursuing that path. So I got involved with the physics department, started doing some teaching and designing of shows in the planetarium. Met Dr. Vanden Berk, and so we've known each other a long time. At least a long time for me. Right. About 6 years. Yeah. And so I I kept sort of a tenuous touch with science while I was focusing on my seminary formation. Yeah. And then I completed that a year ago. So this is what happened. So I finished my seminary, graduated, got ordained. I got ordained on a Saturday, and then Thursday I was sitting in a Calculus 1 class.
There you go.
Yeah, after not having touched math for like 14 years.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So I was like, I just went right into it, and I just started banging out physics and math. Limits. Yeah. And I remember
the way we go.
Yep, the way we went. So, but I loved it. It's hard. So I've been studying undergraduate, finishing up my undergraduate that I started. Yeah. The idea is I'll finish that in a year. Yeah. And then I'll go to grad school, and I'm still discerning where to go for that. Yeah. Wow. So my path in a nutshell. Sorry if I didn't leave anything.
It's a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
To trust that the Lord's using you even while that's going on. Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. That's good to know that's still happening. So we call the podcast That's So Second Millennium, which is kind of a deliberately ambiguous. Part of it is, let's not be like the stereotypical, well, of course, it's leaked over into this third millennium, but, the idea of the conflict between faith and reason that, has arisen since the Enlightenment. But it's also that, it also pays tribute to that 13th century synthesis of, faith and reason that was accomplished in the High Middle Ages. And, your career sounds like, in this third millennium, some of that best of it, coming across and being part of, where the church is going to be going forward. So that's really exciting. I'd love to talk to Dr. Vanden Berk for a little bit as well. So, in terms of, I take it you're also a Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been Catholic since my baptism as a baby.
Okay.
And I guess for almost as long, I've had an interest in science.
Okay.
So they've always gone together in my life. I've been serious about both of them. And I've never really found a serious conflict between them in my life. So I guess I'm very fortunate in that way. Yeah. But it's probably partly because of my upbringing, but both my parents are teachers.
Okay.
So we took, education was always very important.
Yeah.
And although they're not scientists, they both, really respect science and have an interest in it themselves.
Yeah.
So,
what part of the country did you grow up in?
Green Bay, Wisconsin. Another small football town.
Okay.
South Bend,
Yeah.
We went to Mass every Sunday and Holy Day of Obligation. We did some things, probably, church related outside of that. I grew up in the watered down 70s and 80s, catechesis.
Although midway in age, probably between the two of you, and I remember the Felt and Burlap era.
Still persists in some ways, but So, but I probably had a better catechesis than most. It was pretty easy being Catholic there because a lot of my friends, a lot of the town is Catholic, ethnically going back many generations. And my dad was in the seminary for a short period of time. He was young, so we have this. We always had this kind of library of theology books, and he kept a strong interest in that, even though he was just a grade school teacher, but he really enjoyed that. They were well beyond me as a child,
Yeah.
But I saw them there, and it was...
They must be important.
Yeah, they're right. And I always knew that the Catholics were really intellectually serious, too. That's something that came up. That's something that was pretty obvious to me. So I like science fiction. I read a lot of science fiction, watched Star Trek, and I was a grade schooler when Star Wars came out. So this was, that was like, it was like life changing as someone as in
many
school,
people,
right?
Yeah.
So that's I always thought since I was a kid that if I could, I would like to be a scientist. That's what I want to do. So, and the first time I ever heard that there was ever any conflict, let's say, between science and faith is when I was watching the Cosmos series of Carl Sagan. Right? I was in grade school at the time too. It was a great show. I loved it, but there's always that underlying idea that, especially when the Galileo story was presented, that there was this this battle of the enlightened scientists with the mean old church and so forth. Yeah. I knew that wasn't the case. Even as a kid, I knew that the church today isn't like that. But I kind of resolved that with I was always taught that this is the Vatican. We're post Vatican II, and that's the old.
That's
church.
The bad old church.
We don't teach that anymore. We don't teach that stuff. The church isn't like that anymore. And maybe it was backwards at the time, but we're well beyond that. Yeah. So even then, there really wasn't any strong conflict, I'd say, between science and faith. Yeah. Actually, the first time I really had any challenge was when I was in high school, and I met my future wife. Okay. So she was. So she wasn't Catholic; she was Lutheran, and we had these really deep discussions about religion, and that helped a lot. But it was clear that the Lutherans didn't do much better at catechizing than we did as Catholics. So anyway, so it was but nonetheless, that set us both on this, really trying to deeply look into our faiths more than we would have otherwise. So I think it was very good for both of us. So we went to the University of Wisconsin as for our undergraduates. I found out that I was good enough at math. I didn't necessarily it wasn't my favorite thing to do, but I was good enough, and I could manage the physics classes, which I did really like. And so I realized I could do this. I could be a scientist. So so I decided to major in astronomy, and I got a good chance to do research as an undergraduate, which was really nice. So I studied comets and plasma torus around Jupiter. I even did some theoretical work. Okay. And so
you must have enjoyed, you must have been able to deal with the math enough to do the
Well, I found out that if I really, really wanted to, I could be a theorist, but I also realized I didn't really, really want to be a theorist. So I like going to observatories and looking through the telescope, using the instruments and that kind of thing. So.
I was looking at your list of your research interests, and they all sound fascinating. I hope we can work some of that in here later in the.
So then I went to grad school at the University of Chicago, and that was very intense. Oh,
that's right. Yeah, you're another person with the U-Chicago connection. There's several of the speakers at this conference.
Some of my good colleagues are going to be here this week.
Yeah, there you go.
So. We have to meet each other at conferences. So
it's really that's nice. Often how it works.
I did a lot of things there. I did my thesis with the Hubble Space Telescope, and a number of other things as well.
That was big and shiny and new at that point.
Yeah, but it was. I was doing a spectroscopic study. Which was okay because remember early on the optics
problems.
So I wasn't doing an imaging study, so spectroscopy wasn't quite as
wasn't as tragically affected by that.
It also wasn't as newsworthy as well. But that's okay.
The John Q. public doesn't understand how cool the elements are. This has been a large part of my problem teaching mineralogy too.
But still, it's a lot of fun. But at that time, when I was a grad student, I also started working on the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, which is until very recently I'd say, except for the Hubble Space Telescope, the biggest astronomy project in the history of astronomy.
Right.
It was just being built at the time. So when I graduated,
that would have been among the earliest uses of, digital, imaging technology.
Yeah.
Right? I bet the astronomers looked at that as it was being developed, saying, "We want it. Bring it." I mean,
absolutely. So there had been photographic surveys of the sky before, but the goal of the Sloan Digital Sky Survey was to do this digitally in many different colors and gigantic area of the sky. So that's what it
was still did. Probably Northern Hemisphere dominated, but
mostly, yeah. So the telescope is in the mountains of southern New Mexico.
Yeah.
We it covers about a third of the sky, roughly. Something like that. And it's still going on. It's in its fourth or fifth stage at this point. But So
is the hope to map everything that can be seen from that latitude?
No, because it's well, I guess in some ways it's been so successful that there have been many other surveys started and proposed. So, for example, another survey that I've worked on is called the Large Synaptic Survey Telescope, which is still under construction.
Okay.
There's a massive amount of work going into it.
Is it in the Southern Hemisphere? Or?
Yeah, that's in
Chile.
In Chile, that's right. But that is going to the Sloan Digital Sky Survey covered about, let's say, roughly a third of the sky. The Large Synaptic Survey Telescope will cover that area in a couple of days or a couple of nights and do it repeatedly for many, many years. So it's just going to be completely awesome.
There's going to be a time scale of, that light appeared there. And the whole time.
Every night there will be tens of thousands of new objects seen that weren't there the night before.
Yeah.
That's that kind of thing. So,
so it really is, even compared to where things are, right now, it'll be a huge step forward.
Yeah, we always have to do something at least an order of magnitude bigger than before. That seems to be the...
Otherwise, we wouldn't get excited enough to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the cost that goes into things like that, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's right. And the amount of work that goes into it. Astronomy really changed at the time. So when I graduated, I went to the University of Texas for a while, working at McDonald Observatory in West Texas. I joined
a nice isolated place to have
it's awesome. So if you want to be awed by God's creation, go to a mountaintop in the middle of nowhere on a clear moonless night and look up at the sky. It's just it does blow you away. You can't help but ponder the big questions at that point. But, so when I was there, I was working on it was also a digital mapping survey called the Texas Deep Sky Survey. There were about 5 of us working on it.
Because, of course, Texas has to have its own.
The stars at night are big and bright. Right?
I had to sing that in elementary school.
So I joined the project a little bit later. And after about 5 years, we had mapped out about 10 square degrees of the sky. Okay. And that's larger than it seems because, imagine the moon is about half a degree wide on the sky. So this is 10 square degrees is quite a bit larger. But after 5 years, that's about as far as we got. I went to a meeting of the American Astronomical Society and the Sloan Digital Sky Survey that I dabbled with a little bit as a graduate student. They showed their first light data, just data on their first night. And in one night, they had done more than we had done in 5 years.
Great.
That I saw the writing on the wall which said that's the future of astronomy. Yeah. And so, after Texas, I went to Fermilab, just outside of Chicago.
Okay.
So Fermilab's role was to process the data. So take gobs of data every night in its raw form. You have to turn it into data that can be used for science, and that's what Fermilab's job was. It's
data reduction, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. So, and that was a really exciting time because we were also kind of doing data quality and looking at how things were coming out, and just by doing that, you find something new just about every single day. Entire fields of astronomy that taken decades or centuries. We've got the data to turn it over now. It's just amazing. So those are really exciting times. I continue working on on that today. So I guess getting back to the faith part, I mean, in this whole process, everywhere I've been, there have been people who I've seen are great scientists, but also faithful Christians, and in particular Catholics. More often than not, if it was someone serious in their faith, they were Catholic, and so there were good examples the entire time.
If you enjoyed this episode, or it made you think, come on over to That's So Second Millennium's Facebook page and leave a comment or ask a question. We'd love to hear from you.